Are you wondering how to improve marriage communication or how to find marriage communication skills? Maybe you're having marriage communication problems or marriage communication issues, but maybe you're not. Maybe you are just looking for marriage advice on communication because you want to improve your Christian marriage. Either way, today we're going to be talking about how we can manage our emotions first and how that then therefore improves our communication moving forward. Today you're going to walk away with practical tips and some advice and encouragement from me as someone who's gone through it, worked through it, is still sometimes struggling with these issues. And I'm going to give you the real, raw, and vulnerable truth about what has been the hardest for me and how I've gotten through the toughest moments in my marriage.
Welcome to the United Christian Marriage Podcast, where we help you build a healthy, united marriage that impacts your family now and for generations to come. If your marriage feels disconnected or like you're the only one trying and he just doesn't get it, then you're in the right place. I'm Micaiah, a Christian marriage coach, trauma-informed mentor, and wife of a blue-collar man. I've been in the trenches too, and I've helped women make small but powerful shifts in their marriage daily because it's really those little things that make the biggest difference. And I'm here to help you do the same, without the shame, without fluff, and always with Jesus at the center. On this podcast, we talk about biblical truths that you can actually apply to your marriage. We talk about how to communicate effectively and what it takes to create a deeply connected marriage, even if right now you're in a really hard place. I got pregnant at 17, married at 18, and had to build a life and marriage I never saw modeled. Jesus was all I had, and those early years, they were rough. Diapers, emotional outbursts, and total communication breakdowns. But if we can do it, you can too. So grab your coffee or tea and a notebook, and let's dive into today's episode.
Okay, so we're going to be getting into all of the marriage communication skills, some marriage communication tools, and of course, marriage communication tips. But first, I want to address if there's anyone out here who's, for some reason, clicked on this episode, but you're like not convinced that emotional processing is the tool you need, let me just convince you. So even if you don't consider yourself an emotional person, there's always emotions at play. And the reason that you may not feel like you're an emotional person, like you feel like they don't come up a lot, that could be a lot of reasons, but some of the most common reasons is that you're resisting your emotions, which likely if you're in this situation where you feel like you're not emotional, it's because you've learned to suppress them from a young age. Like showing emotion wasn't safe. And so you've suppressed your emotions and now you feel like you make more logical decision. And that's because you were probably trained to do that. We do live in a very logical society where we focus more on the head than the heart and the body. And so it's very normal to find that there's a lot of women and men walking around who do not know how to process or sit with their emotions because they've been trained not to. They've been trained to push them down and to bury them. And so that could be one reason. There's also things like trauma, ADHD, autism spectrum. Some of those other things can kind of play into this. But a lot of the times, even those things go back to that root of like, at some point you learned that emotion was not safe. And so you've learned to not deal with it, right? Like you just push it off. And so there's 4 main ways that we do that. And this applies to everyone, whether you know you're an emotional person or you don't think you're an emotional person or you're somewhere in between. We all have these behaviors on somewhere on the spectrum, right? And so the 4 main ways that we deal with emotions in unhealthy ways, like our default way of dealing with it, is 1, that we will spiral. So this is like when you just let yourself keep going down the rabbit hole. In marriage, this looks like you find one thing that, you didn't like or that upset you. Maybe your husband didn't do something the way that you've asked him many times. I know that's what it was usually for me. It was like, oh, I asked him to do this thing so many times, and then I would find one thing he didn't do right, according to my standards. I say right with like quotation marks. And I would get so upset. And then I would find like a gazillion other things that he did wrong. And it was like once my brain started looking for it, I would just spiral and it would go down, down, down and be like, you don't love me, you don't care, and so I would get into this rabbit hole. And so that's an example of spiraling. And then the next one is that we resist the emotion. This is like in our workbook for the curriculum that we use for coaching, we explain it in there like it's like this door that you're trying to push against, like, and the more you push against it, the more it resists. And it's like there's someone 3 times heavier than you on the other side of that door, and you're like trying to push it shut. It makes it worse. The more you push, the worse the tension is. And it's the same thing with our emotions. The more we fight them, the more we resist them, the worse it makes them. And so just trying to shove things down, it doesn't work. And I think a lot of us know this, hopefully, but that's when they usually bubble up and then they all come up to the surface and it feels like we have this big exploding emotion. And we feel the need to go into our third one that we're going to talk about now, which is react. And this is when we physically do something with our emotion. It could be as little as like clenching your fist, or it could be, like hitting something. It could be yelling, like that would be an example of reacting. It's when you actually do something like externally, something that you could see. Right. And so this is when usually we would call these things like blow ups or arguments or, a lot of times this is what people mean when they say like marriage communication issues or marriage communication problems, or we've been arguing a lot, or we fight a lot, how to stop fighting in our marriage. Like those sorts of things are usually what people are talking about, is like this blowing up state where you're just like reacting out of your emotion. And then the fourth one is one that has also become very, very popular in our society and has become so normalized that like we don't even tend to question it as much as we really should. I mean, hopefully as Christians we are, but even some of these things are being passed as normal in the Christian spaces, and that is to distract from your emotion. And that leads to scrolling on your phone, checking your email 20 times a day, binging on Netflix, or, eating a tub of ice cream to like drown your feelings out. This could look like, I'm just going to keep busy. I think this is where a lot of workaholic tendencies are born. And I know, and I can say that because I've been there, and I'm like pulling myself out of that more and more, but it's still a struggle sometimes. Like work is fulfilling to me. I like the satisfaction of it. And so sometimes it is hard for me to pull myself out of it, especially when I have a goal that I'm like striving towards and I can see my goal so clearly in my mind. And I have to watch that because I don't want my goals, my work, I don't want that to take over my life to the point where I'm not pouring into my marriage or my kids or my home, because those are my first responsibilities. And those are the things that I'm most concerned about. I don't want to concern myself with only work and then look down the road, like 20 years, 15 years, 10 years down the road, look back and realize that I missed so much of my life because I was just work, work, work. Okay, so now you know the 4 ways that we handle emotion. Let's talk about how we should be handling it. How do we handle our emotions so that they don't hurt our marriage communication? Now, I just want to say that this is a tool that I've taught before here on the podcast, so I will link this in the show notes below. So I'm not going to say word for word what I said in that one. So if you want to like really learn the tool in depth, then go back and listen to that episode that I did with Levi. Okay, so this is something that I'm working on with a client right now, and that's why I wanted to bring it up here. So the tool that I taught her is called the PATH framework. And she actually before we even had a coaching together, she joined one of my free trainings called The Path to Communication, which teaches you the emotional regulation tool and then goes into a list of 10 communication tips. And they're very not fluffy. I mean, they're very commonsensical because, like, most things that work are, it's just that we don't do them, right? Like, they're not like brain surgeon level. It's usually common sense stuff that we just don't do. But they're definitely not fluffy. They were, specific and really hit the root of the issues. And so she watched that free training that I did in one of my friends' groups, and she was there live. Then I think it was like the next day we had our coaching call. So it worked out perfectly. It was all fresh on her mind, and we were able to talk through it. But she has, tried to get her emotions together by herself, and it wasn't working. In her specific situation, she's had like instances of infidelity in the past. She has had issues with her husband not showing that he's fully committed to the marriage, but sometimes he says he is, sometimes he isn't, and he's actually like walked out on her and came back multiple times. And so she's felt like she's in this wishy-washy place. And even if your marriage isn't there, even if you feel like you guys are pretty strong, just hang with me for the story, because I swear I'm going somewhere with this. So we are talking through this, and she's not the first woman that I've talked through this with. So once you do it a couple times, you start to see the patterns. And I can say that I've seen it in her, and I've seen it in many other women, is the marriage with no communication or a marriage with a lack of communication is the exact same issue, like root issue, as a marriage that has communication, but it's just not healthy, or it's not healthy all the time. It's the same issue. And the issue is that you just don't have the tools to communicate in a healthy way. And I guess you could say that's technically not the root issue, but that's like a layer deeper, right? And then there's layers that we would address under that are going to be different for every single individual. And that's where like coaching comes into play. And that's where when I walk with my clients, it's like we get through the deeper layers under that. Like, what is causing this for you personally? What thought patterns, what emotions are coming up? How can we shift those things? That's what we work on in coaching. And the reason that I bring this up is because when you know that you just have a lack of tools, it kind of takes some of the shame out of it, which a lot of times the shame, the condemnation, the fear, the worry, the stress, the brain fog, the confusion, those things are Satan's weapons to keep us stuck and to keep us running in circles. So I'm just trying to lift that off of you right now in the name of Jesus, because you do not need any more confusion. You do not need any more second guessing. You do not need to stay in despair and worry over your marriage. What you need is some tools, and what you need is some real accountability. And so if you want that accountability, then please do book a coaching call with me in the show notes below, or join my group. So I have a free Facebook group, and I'm starting a Bible study group that will be specifically only for Bible study content for Christian couples. So it'll be marriage specific Bible study content, and you can join that in the show notes as well. It's free for only a limited time. Then it'll become a monthly membership fee that you'll have to pay. So I'd love to see you in any of those and hold you to that level of accountability. But if you're looking for just the tools, then go back and listen to that path framework that I talked about in the other episode I'm linking in the show notes. And the other thing you want to do as a tool is really learn to understand your own thoughts and emotions. And this preps you and helps you if you do end up coming into coaching. Then you have these journal entries or these things that you've written down or kept track of somewhere to bring into those sessions and say, hey, this is what's been going on. And if you don't have those things, we can always figure them out, but it's so much more time effective if you've already collected data. and you're like, okay, well, this is kind of what I want to talk about. And then that way we don't waste any time, and we're able to go even deeper. So I would really suggest that you guys start there. Learn to process your emotion, learn to sit with your emotion, practice actually sitting with it, even if it's just 1 minute. I'm going to sit with this emotion. I'm just going to let it be. I'm not going to shame myself about it. I'm not going to judge myself. And I hope that you're writing all this down. If you haven't been taking notes, please just rewind and listen at least to the last 10 minutes, because I know that I listen to podcasts and then get a bunch of good stuff out of it, but don't write any of it down and it falls right out of my brain. So I don't want that to happen to you. And I just want to like full circle this back to the story about this client I'm working with. After she watched my free training, learned the PATH method for processing your emotion, and learned those communication tips, she literally told me that next day on the Zoom call that she already saw a small shift in how she communicated with her husband during an argument that day. And that was a huge win. I was like, no way. Like, you've only known me for like, less than a week now. You went to one of my free trainings, and it was like she already took away something that she could implement, something that shifted the way that she communicated and the way that she spoke to her husband. And so we still have a lot of work to do. I won't say that we're anywhere near done, but one small step away from resentment, away from contention, away from anger, away from distrust, just one little step away from those things is progress. It is encouraging, and we should all be encouraged by those small wins, because when we see those small wins, then we keep going. And over time, those little shifts add up to huge, major life-changing shifts. So don't be discouraged. Don't let yourself get down if you don't see this huge change overnight. Just know sometimes it takes time, and that's okay.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you got so much value out of it. And if you loved this episode, could you do me a quick favor and click 5 stars and leave me a review? It would do wonders for spreading the podcast out to other people who need it, and it only takes a few seconds. If you have an additional few seconds, why don't you go ahead and screenshot the episode and share it to your stories so we can spread the message and get more families healed. Thank you, and until next time, I will be praying for you, and I hope you have a blessed day. Bye.